Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adamo Baseball, where I'm your host, Adamo. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the Detroit Tigers. Their offense has got some goodness. Their bullpen is actually looks like their bullpen could be pretty good. Their rotation, however, so I picked them to finish fourth because I thought initially that some of their prospects might start to actually start playing to their potential. I know they got a guy in minors, Mize, who's supposed to be able to, be a pretty good pitcher. Outside of that, they really haven't had a lot of luck with their rotation. So for them to finish fourth, they would have to have at least one of those guys step up. And if they're not careful, Kansas City will finish above them. Honestly, I'm considering swapping my picks, but I'm not going to because I made an initial gut feeling. So I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm still picking them fourth. They're not going to be a 500 team. It's just not happening. They're still trying to build from years past, so it's not happening. So, as always, I'm going to get started by going into the lineup. Leading off, Robbie Grossman, left field. So, when I looked him up, I never heard of him, but it turns out that he actually does have a lot of experience as a leadoff guy. He doesn't strike out much. He's got one season where he struck out 107 times. Other than that, he rarely strikes out 80, and he plays the full season. His batting average isn't exactly great, but it's good enough for a leadoff guy. And he usually has 50 plus walks per season. So he actually does get on base quite a bit. So, he actually does fulfill his job, and he doesn't hit for power, so he actually is a good leadoff guy. Batting second, Jonathan Scoop, second base. So he's a pretty good second baseman. Actual fielding. That's why the Brewers traded for him a couple of years ago to try and fill those infield holes that they had. He actually is a pretty good fielding second base. As far as a hitting second baseman, average. He's not gonna lead your team to victory, but he's not bad. He's not a home run hitter. He usually hits about average. So really, he actually would be good for his position, second in the lineup, because his job would be to move Robbie Grossman, and he actually is set up to do that. Batting third, this guy needs no introduction. Miguel Cabrera, designated hitter. Whenever he finally does decide to retire, he's set up to be the first Miami Marlin to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He hits 13 home runs this season or better, which actually may not happen. But if he can do that, he crosses the 500 home run threshold. If you hit 500 home runs and you don't have any controversy, and of what I've seen, he doesn't have any controversy, you're a Hall of Famer. And in 2012, he hit for the Triple Crown, which is something that hadn't happened since Carl Yastrzemski did it in 1967. And I don't expect to see anyone do that again for a long time. Miggy, as he's so often referred, he's easily the best player on the team. He's been to 3 World Series. Wait, no, has he? No, he's been to the 1 World Series. The year he won MVP, he went to the World Series in 2012, where they lost to the Giants. That was because the Giants were just on a tear for like 5 years straight. Or 3 out of 5 years, and they just knew how to win in the postseason. And the Tigers just couldn't quite get there. But yeah, Miggy's been there. He's done that. He's likely to cross the 500 home run threshold. He's always had a good batting average. His one issue is that he hasn't really done a lot over the last few years. So last year's a shortened season, as I mentioned, God knows how many times at this point. And so he's not, or so like, you know, his stats from last year, you really can't take those into consideration. 2 to 3 years before that, however, he wasn't playing like his old self. One of those years he was hurt. Fine, got it. The other 2 years, he really just, like, he was playing the full seasons. He just wasn't playing to his full potential. This year could probably be the season where he plays to his fullest potential. Because he was a first baseman most of his career, and they're moving him over to DH, basically just to keep his bat in the lineup. And he could legitimately be, you know, checking the boxes that Hall of Fame voters are looking for this season. And don't be surprised if after this year he says, you know what, I'm done. That's it. I'm good. Batting cleanup, Jaimar Candelario, third base. He's not the kind of guy you want hitting cleanup. But obviously, he's their best option. Because unless if Miggy can play like his younger self, Candelario's kind of it. That's why he's listed as cleanup, because he's not good. He's not a particularly good hitter. I don't know how he is as a third baseman, but typically you don't have third baseman hitting cleanup unless you know that he's got proven power. So, take that as you will. Batting fifth, Renato Nunez, first base. I didn't know he wasn't still in Baltimore, because he was playing in Baltimore for quite a while. He actually is a pretty good 5-hitter. Like, you actually can put the team on his back, and he could be like their big player going forward. Number 6, Willy Castro, shortstop. I looked him up beforehand, and there's really not a lot to say there. I don't remember much. Like, I know the name, like I've heard of him, but yeah. Number 7, this guy I actually have heard of. Catcher, Wilson Ramos. So he made a name for himself in Washington. He actually is a good catching catcher. And he hits pretty well too. Like, he actually is a well-rounded catcher. I mean, he's not going to put it out of the park 35 times, but he hits. He can hit for power. And he's a good fielding catcher. Like, he knows how to handle a rotation. He was catching for Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer for a long time, and he knew how to handle that kind of that kind of talent. So yeah, if anyone on the field is gonna get that rotation playing better, it's gonna be him. This is his first year in Detroit, and yeah, he's your real leader on that team. Batting eighth, Nomar Mazara. I don't know how to say that. Right field. No. He's, I haven't heard anything bad about him, so that's good. But yeah, he's in the 8-hole for a reason. And batting ninth, center fielder Jacoby Jones. I actually had to specify MLB because it wanted me to look up the NFL player when I was looking up his stuff. So he's on the team for fielding purposes, and center fielders usually don't have great numbers in general. It's not always true, but in this case it is. Like, he's a pretty good center fielder, but, he's not going to make the All-Star game. I'm going to start with the bullpen because I'm far more optimistic here. Their closer, Brian Garcia, in 2019, he didn't play much, and his numbers were but 2020, when he played 26 games, he had 4 saves, and a record that really doesn't matter because as a closer, the fewer wins and losses you have, the better. His ERA was 1.6. So, yeah, Brian Garcia may actually have a pretty good year this year. That may be your all-star on this team. I was talking about Reynaldo Nunez and Wilson Ramos earlier, and Robbie Grossman. They're not going to be, they're in positions that it's really hard to make the all-star game. A left fielder, it is really hard to make the all-star game as a left fielder. Catcher, there's a lot of really good catchers, especially in the American League. And Nunez as a first baseman, you got to have 20-plus home runs by the All-Star game to get into the All-Star game. It's just not happening. Brian Garcia, he actually is set up to be in that position. As a closer, if you're doing your job, you'll make the All-Star game. And I think Brian Garcia is well set up for that. Their bullpen, Jose Cisnero and Buck Farmer. When I was looking these two guys up, they actually do have everything set up for them to succeed. They're pretty good relievers. Cisnero was in Houston for a while, so he knows what it takes to be a good reliever. And then Buck Farmer actually has gotten better over time in the Tigers' bullpen. So you're looking at a bullpen that actually can be and should be good. So if their rotation can make it 6 innings, then they may actually win some more games than they should. Now I get into the part that I'm dreading, the rotation. Spencer Turnbull. You don't want him top of the rotation. Honestly, he's closer to about a 4 guy, maybe 5. He needs to have a breakout year. If he wants to hold on his position at the top of the rotation, he needs to have a breakout year. Pitching second, Matthew Boyd, same thing. He's had an almost good year, but he needs to have a breakout year. He does. Pitching third, this is their one free agency pickup. Jose Urena. he's had like 2 good years when he was a Marlin, but he's also the guy that threw it to Cunha. So he's still shaking that off, and he hasn't pitched great since then. So third actually is about the right spot in the rotation for him. Pitching fourth, Michael Fulmer. He's in about the right position. Then Daniel Norris pitching fifth. He really hasn't played that long. And he actually didn't have a bad season last year. So he may actually end up moving up in the rotation. So there's not really a lot to say for their rotation, and I think I made my feelings pretty clear. I don't see this team going very far. It's not one of those the good is really good, the bad is really bad type situations. No, their lineup, they've got good pieces, but they don't have that extra something. Their bullpen is that extra something. Their rotation isn't. I don't see this team going very far. I'm only picking them fourth because I already did my Royals episode. If I hadn't already done that, I'd have swapped them. I'd have picked Detroit to finish last. I think that there's going to be some element with the Tigers that comes out that we just don't see yet, myself included, that I just don't see yet, and I think it can push them to fourth. So who knows? Last year, when they were in the postseason hunt, they were not. It wasn't because they were good, it was because of 2020. It's not going to be the case this year, okay? This year's not going to be shortened like last year, and I just don't see it happening. Those are my thoughts on the Detroit Tigers. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're listening on a podcast, you can let me know on Patreon. Adamo Baseball Podcast. There's no hyphen in it, and it's all 3 words. So, with that being said, thank you for listening. Cheers until next time.